My name's Nate. I'm 27 years old, work in IT, and I've never been what you'd call the life of the party. I've always leaned more toward quiet than chaotic. Friday nights curled up with a book, or watching some documentary about space or unsolved crimes. I like structure. I like knowing what's coming. I'm the kind of guy who meal preps on Sundays, does laundry on Thursdays, and keeps a spreadsheet of my personal budget. Color-coded, obviously. Some people find that dull. I find it peaceful. But that wasn't enough for Sarah. Sarah was the opposite of me in almost every way. She was loud, unpredictable, magnetic. She had this energy that pulled people in like gravity. People turned their heads when she walked into a room, not because she was the most beautiful, though she was definitely stunning, but because she owned every space she entered. Always talking, always laughing, always moving. She was the kind of person who made you feel like life was happening at double speed. I met her at a mutual friend's birthday party, a rare event I almost skipped. I was the guy awkwardly sipping a ginger ale in the corner, trying to make conversation with someone's dog. She was the woman dancing in the middle of the living room with a slice of cake in one hand and a glass of wine in the other. She noticed me. Not just glanced past me, but really noticed me, and made a beeline straight for where I was standing. "You look like you're stuck in a hostage situation," she said, grinning. "Want me to rescue you?" That was Sarah. Bold. Unfiltered. Completely unafraid. We started dating 2 weeks later. And for the first 6 months, it was magic. We balanced each other. She brought me out of my shell. I helped her slow down and breathe. She introduced me to spontaneous road trips, midnight karaoke, and eating Thai food off the hood of my car. I introduced her to Sunday morning coffee rituals, puzzles, and the idea of actually folding your laundry the same day you wash it. She'd always say, "You're so grounding, Nate. I need that." But then things started shifting. I didn't notice it right away. Just little comments. Like when I suggested a quiet movie night and she sighed, "Don't you ever want to do something exciting?" Or when she laughed at how I still packed lunch in those neatly labeled containers. Harmless at first, like teasing. But it chipped away. Eventually, her tone changed. She started staying out later, started inviting me less. Her texts got shorter. Her smiles faded faster. I tried to ask if something was wrong, but she'd always brush me off. Until one Sunday morning, out of the blue, she asked me to meet her for brunch. She chose this trendy rooftop place I'd never heard of. Loud music, overpriced waffles. Everyone dressed like they were trying to get discovered by a modeling agency. I showed up wearing my usual jeans and a navy polo. She looked like she stepped off a fashion ad. I knew something was off the moment I sat down. She didn't say hi, didn't kiss me. Just stirred her mimosa and said, "So I've been thinking." Nothing good ever follows that sentence. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Nate, you're just too boring for me." I blinked. "What?" "I mean, you're great," she said, waving a hand like that softened the blow. "You're stable, you're nice. But I need someone alive, you know?" "Alive?" I repeated, trying not to sound as hurt as I felt. "Yeah. Someone who challenges me, who surprises me, who doesn't spend their weekends alphabetizing their spice rack." I stared at her, speechless. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to tell her that there's nothing wrong with peace, that not every relationship needs to be fireworks and roller coasters, that I thought we balanced each other, that I thought she liked me. But she had already made up her mind. She paid for her drink, stood up, and kissed me on the forehead. "You'll find someone who loves boring," she said. And just like that, she walked out of my life. No big fight, no dramatic breakup scene. Just a quiet, casual exit. As if 2 years of love could be boxed up and set on the curb like old furniture. A few weeks later, through a mutual friend's Instagram story, I found out she was dating a DJ. Of course she was. He had bright green hair, tribal tattoos, and a six-pack that he apparently never wore a shirt over. He released a SoundCloud mixtape called Moon Sweat. Yes, that was the actual title. And captioned every post with emojis that made my eyes hurt. But he was exciting, spontaneous, loud, alive, I guess. I stopped checking her social media after that. The breakup hit me harder than I thought it would. Not just because I missed her, but because I started questioning whether who I was would ever be enough for anyone. Was I really that boring? Or did she just mistake peace for monotony? Months had passed since Sarah walked out of my life, and I was still picking up the pieces, not with wild nights or rebound hookups, but with quiet, intentional healing. I buried myself in work, picked up a consistent gym routine, and finally started therapy after years of saying, "I'll look into it." I wasn't trying to become someone new. I just wanted to understand who I was outside of that relationship. The nights were the hardest. Not because I missed her, at least not in the way I expected, but because I missed being seen. Having someone to share those little inside jokes, the sleepy good mornings, the shared glances during movies, the comfort of being known. So when a college friend, Marcus, invited me to a black tie charity auction downtown, I said yes. Not because I cared about vintage art pieces or celebrity appearances, I didn't. But because I needed to be around people again. Even if I ended up hiding near the shrimp cocktail station all night, at least I was out of the house. The venue was elegant. Massive glass walls, string quartet playing in the corner, the kind of lighting that made everyone look 10% more attractive. I wore my nicest suit, which I hadn't touched since my cousin's wedding, tied a respectable Windsor knot, and even polished my shoes. For once, I felt like I blended in rather than stuck out. Marcus introduced me to a few people, and I did the usual networking shuffle: smile, nod, sip, small talk. It was fine. I didn't feel amazing, but I wasn't drowning either. That felt like progress. About an hour in, a hush fell over the room as the host took the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," she beamed, "please join me in welcoming tonight's special guest, the incomparable Lena Morgan." The applause erupted. I blinked, surprised. Lena Morgan. Yes, that Lena Morgan. Global pop star. 2-time Grammy winner. Vocal advocate for mental health, animal rights, and clean water. The kind of person who could drop a selfie and crash half the internet. And the same Lena Morgan that Sarah practically worshipped. Her walls were lined with Lena's vinyls. She once cried watching Lena perform live on YouTube. If Lena dropped an album, Sarah pre-ordered the deluxe version with the signed poster. She even jokingly told me, half-jokingly I think, that if Lena ever became single, all bets are off. So imagine my surprise when out of the 200-plus people in that ballroom, Lena was guided to the empty seat, right beside me. She wore a navy silk gown, simple and stunning. Her hair was swept back in soft curls, and her smile was warm but tired. The kind of tired you carry when too many people expect too much from you. I nodded politely, trying not to look starstruck. "Hi," she said, offering her hand. "I'm Lena." I smiled. "Nate. I'm aware." She laughed. "Yeah, I figured. Always weird introducing myself. Feels like saying, 'Hi, I'm Beyoncé.'" That broke the ice. We started chatting, casually at first. She asked if I was bidding on anything. I told her I once tried to hang a canvas painting and nearly put a hole through my drywall, so probably not. She cracked up. Then we moved into stranger topics. She mentioned how exhausting hotel breakfasts were. "How hard is it to make real eggs?" she said, poking at her plate. "And don't get me started on tiny cereal boxes." I joked about how I traveled with my own tea bags because hotel coffee tasted like burnt cardboard. That led to a surprisingly deep conversation about small comforts, morning routines, and how she secretly loved doing her own laundry when no one was watching. We talked about Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro, about how she wished she could take a week off to just sit in sweatpants and build a Lego set in peace, how she envied people who got to be boring. That made me laugh. "Well, you're in luck," I said. "Boring is kind of my whole brand." She raised an eyebrow, smiling. "Good. I'm tired of chaos." And for a moment, it wasn't a celebrity sitting beside me. It was just a woman, craving calm. We didn't flirt, not in the obvious way. But something clicked. Not a spark, but a settling. Like we both exhaled without realizing we'd been holding our breath. When the dinner wrapped up, I figured that was it. A nice night. A once-in-a-lifetime brush with fame. I stood to leave and said, "It was really nice talking to you." She hesitated for a second, then said, "Do you have Instagram?" I blinked. Yeah, but it's mostly food pics and weird trivia. She grinned. Perfect. We exchanged numbers instead. I didn't go home feeling giddy. I went home feeling curious. Like maybe, just maybe, life had a plot twist in store. And I couldn't help but think, if Sarah could see this moment, she'd probably choke on her artisan oat milk latte. But this wasn't about her anymore. This was something new. The months that followed that charity auction felt like a dream, slow, warm, and quietly unfolding like morning sunlight through a window. Lena and I started dating, quietly and deliberately. No tabloids, no PR announcements, no soft launch Instagram stories. Just two people learning each other, one ordinary moment at a time. And in those ordinary moments, I discovered who Lena Morgan really was. Not the superstar or the icon, but the woman behind it all. She hated the paparazzi. I mean, really hated them. Not just because they invaded her privacy, but because they twisted everything. If she was smiling in public, it meant she was dating someone. If she wasn't, it meant she was spiraling. She told me she once cried after a tabloid published a photo of her buying toothpaste and called her disheveled. It was just toothpaste. But she loved puzzles. Not metaphorically. Literal puzzles. She had a cabinet in her apartment filled with 1,000-piece boxes and custom wood sets from obscure Etsy sellers. On our third date, we sat on her living room floor for 4 hours, building a scene of a foggy Japanese garden. When we finished, she beamed and said, "People chase excitement. I chase peace." She liked mismatched socks, hated wearing heels, couldn't sleep with the closet door open, loved peanut butter straight from the jar. And whenever she got overwhelmed, she'd hum under her breath. Not a song, just a soft, steady hum, like she was calming herself from the inside out. And me? I'd never felt more chosen. Not admired. Not appreciated. Not settled for. Chosen. She didn't love me in spite of my simplicity. She loved me because of it. Because I didn't need to perform or keep up or act larger than I was. Because I cooked her dinner instead of ordering takeout. Because I asked her about her day and actually listened. Because I never once treated her like a trophy. We lived quietly. She met my parents on a weekend visit to Connecticut. My mom made her lasagna and tried not to fangirl. Lena spent the evening helping my dad fix a loose kitchen drawer and laughed at his corny dad jokes like she'd known him for years. I met her security team, learned their names, understood their routines. She trusted them like family, and they treated me like a welcome addition. Not a threat, not a liability. We didn't take exotic vacations. We took walks around my neighborhood, grocery shopped together, fell asleep to old cartoons. And it was perfect. One night, after I made her a terrible attempt at homemade risotto, seriously, it was more glue than food. We sat on the couch laughing at how bad it was. She was wearing my hoodie and fuzzy socks, her hair a mess, no makeup on. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the kind of love people write songs about, but the songs never quite capture it. She looked at me, eyes soft, and asked, "Nate, are you serious about us?" I didn't hesitate, not even for a breath. I've never been more serious about anything. She didn't say anything right away, just leaned into me, let her head rest on my chest and whispered, "Good. Because I'm tired of running." 2 months later, we were at a quiet lake an hour outside the city. Just the two of us, a thermos of tea, and a plaid blanket spread across the grass. I didn't get down on one knee. I didn't hire a drone. I didn't hide a photographer in the bushes. I just held her hand, looked into her eyes and said, "I don't need anything big. I just need you. All of you. Every quiet moment, every boring Tuesday. Will you marry me?" She cried. Not the mascara-streaked dramatic kind. The kind where she covered her mouth with her hands and whispered yes, like it was a secret she was afraid to speak too loudly. We didn't post it. Didn't tell the press. It wasn't for them. It was ours. And that's when it hit me. Not revenge. Not resentment. Just irony. The kind that makes you laugh quietly at how the universe has a twisted sense of humor. Sarah used to call Lena her dream woman. Posters on her wall. Fan edits saved on her phone. She talked about her like she was unattainable, a goddess on a stage, far above ordinary people. And here I was, the boring guy she left behind, engaged to the very woman she obsessed over. It wasn't about getting back at Sarah. Not really. But it felt like the universe had delivered a full circle moment wrapped in velvet. So I had an idea. Not vengeance, closure. The engagement party was Lena's idea. She wanted something intimate, small enough to feel real, elegant enough to mark the occasion. 40 people, close friends, a few of her trusted colleagues, my family, her creative team. No photographers, no influencers, no glitz or press. Just real people, real joy, and a celebration of something deeply personal. We rented out a private rooftop garden in the city. Soft string lights framed the space, candles flickered on each table, and a live jazz trio played in the corner, mellow and smooth. There was champagne, finger foods, laughter, hugs. Everyone we loved was there. Everyone who mattered. Except one. I hadn't thought about Sarah in months. Not really. I had moved on, moved forward. But 1 week before the party, while helping address invitations, Lena sat across from me with a curious smile. "Do you want to send one to her?" she asked gently, like she was offering closure, not cruelty. I blinked. "To Sarah?" She nodded. "You don't have to say anything. Just, if you want her to see the man she left behind, maybe it's time." It wasn't about revenge. I didn't want to hurt her. But the thought lingered. Sarah had always said she wanted to meet Lena. Not once. Not twice. Countless times. She idolized her, made playlists of her deep cuts. She even joked that if Lena walked into the room, she'd forget her own name. The irony was too heavy to ignore. So I wrote the invitation myself. No return address. No sender. Just cream cardstock with simple black lettering, the same as all the others. It read, "You always said you wanted to meet her. Now's your chance. Date, time, location, black tie optional." We mailed it 2 days later. No expectations. No follow-up. Then, the night arrived. I wore a charcoal gray suit. Lena wore a satin forest green gown that made her look like the world had dressed up just to compete. She curled her hair into soft waves and wore a necklace I'd given her. Nothing flashy, just a silver pendant with a carved L and N inside a tiny moon. We moved through the crowd, hand in hand, smiling and toasting, telling stories and hugging family. Everyone was glowing with warmth. Then, about an hour in, I saw her. Sarah. She stood just beyond the entrance, in a sleek black dress that barely hid the discomfort on her face. She scanned the room like she wasn't sure she belonged there, like maybe it was all a mistake. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, her posture a little more guarded. And then her eyes found me. She froze. Not in that overacted soap opera way. No. This was real. She blinked a few times, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Me. Standing there, smiling, glass in hand, holding the hand of Lena Morgan. Lena turned her head slightly, following my gaze. She saw Sarah, but didn't react with gloating or confusion. She just gave a small, polite smile, then looked back at me. Her fingers never left mine. Sarah didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't make a dramatic scene. But I saw it. The shift. The way her face changed. The way her shoulders tightened. Her lips pressed together. Her eyes dimmed. Like she'd just walked into a version of the future that she had quietly assumed would never exist without her. I nodded politely. Just once. She blinked again, took a shaky breath, and turned around. She left after 10 minutes. Didn't say a word to anyone. And I didn't follow. I didn't need to. That moment, quiet, heavy, and unspoken, wasn't about triumph or humiliation. It was about closure. A chapter sealed not with revenge, but with grace. There was no need for fireworks or confrontation. Sometimes, life speaks loudest in silence. As the party continued, Lena squeezed my hand. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, eyes searching mine. I smiled. Yeah, more than okay. Because here I was, once called boring, too predictable, too quiet. And yet this extraordinary woman loved me not in spite of that, but because of it. Sarah left me looking for excitement. Lena found me and built peace. And now? Now I'm marrying the woman my ex used to dream about. But the real twist? I never had to become someone else to be loved like this.